So good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir.
I'm so happy to see so many smiling, happy-looking faces, looking so alert and bright right now, and in 15 minutes you'll all be fast asleep. Well, I want to start. When I was in school, I used to love those teachers who would always come and tell stories instead of coming and teaching, right? How many of us are like that? Wow. Okay, so I have to tell a story then. Okay. So I'll start with the story. The story I'm going to tell you about is about a young boy who, when he came to see me, which was several years ago, he was 17 years old. He was terrified at the thought of coming to see a psychoanalyst and especially a hypnotherapist. And he was being dragged into my room by his father. He sat with a terrified look on his face in the chair in front of me, and his father started talking to me. I knew his father because he had consulted me also before. Now this young man, we will call him Amar to protect his identity, was absolutely passionate about one thing and only one thing in his life, and that was to play cricket. And he had managed to get admission to the Dilip Vengsakar Cricket Academy. But so passionate was he about cricket that he managed to convince his parents that he should stop all academic activities like this history, geography, mathematics, all that nonsense, and only play cricket. And somehow, I don't know how he managed, maybe he hypnotized his parents or something, but they also agreed and supported him. So I'm wondering, where is the problem now? If parents are supporting and he's happy, then where's the problem? So the father is telling me that, Doc, the problem is that every time Amar plays for a selection match where he can get selected to something in a tournament, he plays very, very badly. He gets out, he doesn't score much, he plays very badly. But otherwise he's brilliant. So please, can you help him? So I started talking to Amar. I had sent the father out of the room, and I sat with Amar and worked with him. And I had one session with Amar. It was a hypnotherapy session. And then I didn't hear from Amar after that, or from the father, for many months. And then suddenly one day the father phoned me. He was a faculty member of a college in the suburbs of Bombay called the N.L. Dalmia Institute of Management. And father says, please, can you come and give a talk to my postgraduate management students? So I said, very happily. So I went into the also very beautiful campus, like this campus. Big auditorium, 300 students from the postgraduate course. And I gave my talk, and the father came on the stage and said, Jimmy, can I just, if you don't mind, address the students 1 minute? Fine. So he started telling the story. My son went to see him. He had this problem. And that was 3 months ago. I don't know what Dr. Jimmy did to my son, but in this 3 months, my son has been playing cricket 3-4 times every week for all these 3 months. And let me tell you all that they have not been able to get him out, not even once. They have not been able to get him out, not even once. I didn't know the story, and somehow this had grown to become a part of him. So whenever he had to play for an important match, he forgot his passion and love for the game, and his mind focused and only on one thing: I must do well, I must do brilliantly, I must score high. And what happened? He didn't score at all. The same thing you might notice, I'm sure we have all done tests and exams, no? So when we sit for a test and exam, we really study for it. And then when we sit in front of the paper, we can't remember what we studied. What is the matter here with me? Am I such a ullu or what that I can't remember what I studied? Then all the negative thoughts about myself start coming in and becoming a part of me. And that becomes a vicious cycle. because that feeds to the negative thoughts about me that have caused me to have self-doubt in front of the exam paper. And some students who have studied more than anyone else, some of those students will go completely blank. The first question they say, "Arey baap re, this one thing I didn't study, so mine has gone blank." So what happens when you study? Where does it go? Why is recall of that information so difficult? Why was it difficult for young Amar to remember that he had a passion for cricket? What did I do with Amar? Very simply, I put him under hypnosis and I made him remember his passion for cricket. And I gave him a trigger that he could use. I asked him that when you go onto the pitch, what do you do? He said, "Sir, I always like to adjust my gloves. And I do it even sometimes if my gloves may not be needed to be adjusted, still I will do something like this. So under hypnosis I said, every time you adjust your gloves, you will come in full contact with your passion and love for cricket. And that will dominate your mind." Okay. That worked because he got selected. And when he came to see me with his girlfriend many months later. And I don't know why he came to see me, because he was all right. He was on his way to being selected. He was a very happy young boy. So what does that show? We have the ability, the potential to do much more than what we think we can do. And the only limitation that we come from, the only ignorance that we have is that we don't believe that we can do, can't imagine that we can do what we can actually do. We have no idea how powerful your mind is. In Mumbai, I'm sure you must be getting Times of India here also. But Times of India for me is one of the greatest newspapers, publishers of most useless information that you can find. But useful somehow, I can find some use for it. So an article was published in the Times of India about how power of the mind can work, and we need to understand, what was I going to say? I've got a mental block. Okay. Kunal? Okay. So, the thing that I wanted to bring out over here is that you can really do things that you can't imagine yourself to do. Okay? There are people in the Times of India that has published a huge picture of this sadhu who went without food and water for 66 years. How did he do it? Okay. Then I had met another sadhu from Bombay who was also part of the Times of India group of articles that came, who would be able to stare into the full sun for 1 hour without blinking. How do they do that? Recently in the Mumbai Mirror, there were some exams some months ago, and they published some unusual students. There was a young boy who had a very severe problem with his pancreas, and he took his exams from the ambulance, parked outside the ambulance hall, outside the exam hall, and he got 79% grade. And he is feeling sad that he got 79%. He could have got more, but he could not do the history paper. There's a young girl in that who showed that she got 82+%, and she was ADHD and dyslexic. How do they do this? Okay. How do they manage to reach into themselves and discover a potential that is far greater? I heard a story that Sachin Tendulkar, before he bats, he completely loses consciousness of himself and identifies with the ball completely. He becomes one with it. And so he, the bat and the ball, become a unity, and therefore he manages to score the way he does. Okay. So we all come from limitedness and ignorance, because that's where we That's the level of knowledge and consciousness which we have, and we must accept our limitedness and our ignorance if we are to move forward. Okay? And the great inhibitors of moving forward are these fears, this lack of self-confidence, this poor image of yourself that you have, this feeling of being defeated all the time. And on the other hand, you also have a group that come under the emotion of anger. And I'll tell you a story about anger as well, and how it will prevent you from growing yourself. When you are angry, can you think? Anyone able to think when they are angry? Yet, every problem that we face, every situation that we face, either father, mother telling us to do something we don't want to do, or the teacher, or some teacher is unfair, or the policeman giving you a parking ticket, whatever it is, you're being taxed by the tax authority, whatever it is, we respond with either one or two ways, out of fear or out of anger. We don't respond out of thought. And so what happens? The same pattern, the same problem repeats wherever we go. And so a pattern of repetition becomes set in our programming. We become conditioned with it. We respond to life in this way. It becomes the way we have learnt to respond to life.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
And in anger, I'll tell you another story. A young Bori Muslim girl, I'll call her Miriam to protect her name, who had a lot of anger with her father. And she came in angry, she sat down angry, and she told me that first thing she told me is, I'm a very, very angry person, and I yell at my father, and my father yells at me, and then he beats me with a belt. And I don't like it when he beats me with a belt. And then she started crying. How can a father beat her daughter with a belt, his daughter with a belt? How can that happen? Okay. The problem was, she was in junior college. She wanted to take up architecture as a study. Her father wanted her to take up IT, information technology. And she started hating information technology. She started rebelling. She was very, very angry that her father was forcing these decisions at her. And she finally ended up taking an IT course, which was when she came to see me. At that point in time, I was also trying to make a PowerPoint presentation for some other talks of mine. And I was just talking about that, and she said, oh, I can make PowerPoint presentation for you. So I said, okay, good. Make it for me. And I gave her the content, and what she produced on PowerPoint for me was absolutely brilliant. And I told her so. So she was very thrilled. And I said, any idea for this kind of work, how much money people are getting paid? Not PowerPoint, but making websites. And I told her what a friend of mine was getting paid, lakhs of rupees. She said, yeah. Soon, her opinion of the IT business completely was replaced by, wow, this is a fantastic business here. I really want to do this business. And that completely changed her attitude. Completely changed her attitude. What stopped her from discovering that and learning the potential of the IT business? Her anger to her father. Right? So anger doesn't help you to learn anything, doesn't allow you to think. And so every time you are angry, let a little flag go up in your mind and say, I have not understood things. I don't understand something. Cool down, maybe I'll understand it. Can you start observing, witnessing your fears and your angers? If you can do that, you're on the pathway to progress. It's absolutely essential, and it's not just the psychoanalysts of the West that have been talking about this, but far before that. People like Patanjali, who wrote the Yoga Sutras, and many other spiritual teachers, Ramana Maharishi and all the rest of them, have always been advocating something like this. We have a rich tradition of this in our country, which none of us use. Whether you're from Agra, from Mumbai, from Delhi, wherever, we don't use it. That is a tragedy. Yes? So, I will also read to you the story of this fellow. I brought this book not because in case I get bored when I'm giving a speech, I can sit down and start reading a novel. I bought this book because I wanted to show it to you. It's a story about a young man who was born without any arms or any legs. His name is Nick Vujicic. Okay. And he did not say defeat. He did not allow himself to feel a victim. He did not get angry. He did not get full of fear, low self-esteem, any of these things. And today he's a motivational speaker in the USA, earning hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. I'm wondering, Sala, I wish I was born without arms and legs. You know? And he's made an example of his life that makes you feel like that. Just think about it. I'll just briefly read to you a very important. He started a company which is called Attitude is Altitude. And I'll just read to you briefly a paragraph or two from this. You can change your attitude and change your life without taking a pill, without seeing a shrink or trekking to a mountaintop to consult a guru. So far in this book, I've been encouraging you to find your purpose, to have hope for the future and faith in possibilities for your life, and to love yourself as you are. Those attributes will give you a strong foundation and reason to be optimism, which is the power source for adjusting your attitude, much like the batteries in your television remote control. Have you ever known a successful, fulfilled, happy person who is also a pessimist? I haven't. If you look at people like Dhirubhai Ambani, what was his famous words? Dare to dream. Dare to dream. Can you make that your slogan? Dare to dream. Okay. And from that, develop a vision and goal for your life at this early age, and you're made. Yes? So you must understand that this is where your power lies. And if you don't do that, you're giving your power away. Don't give your power away. Yes, we got time? Please someone indicate to me if you got more time. To talk about the mind very briefly, I don't know how many of you know that the popular illustration of the mind or example of the mind is that of an iceberg, where only a small proportion of the iceberg is above water and most of it lies underwater. Underwater means sub. Therefore we call the part that lies underwater subconscious, because you are not conscious of it. And the part that lies above water as conscious. What lies in your subconscious? You can't see. You don't know. Find out. Because it is your most powerful resource. Okay? So your limitedness can lead you to an attitude of helplessness. We all have felt helpless in our lives at times, yes? Anyone is above and beyond feeling helpless? It's our ignorance, it's our limited perception of ourselves that says, I can't do it, I can never achieve it. Then the next feeling is helplessness. What do you do with that helplessness? If you do nothing with it, that helplessness turns into hopelessness, and hopelessness turns into despair, and that can lead you on the path to suicide. Okay? I wouldn't advise anyone to go that path. It's like coming from Delhi to Agra via Madras. The other thing is, instead of helplessness, you can have an attitude of learning. So can you change your attitude to an attitude of learning? Where you have a need to learn that is not necessarily dictated by any board, by any school, by any parent. It's just fundamentally, in the beginning, at the most primitive level, simply nothing more than a need to learn. Need to learn about yourself, need to learn about others, need to learn about life. Need to learn. In that need to accommodate the needs of other people for you to learn, your exams and other things that you may need to learn. But start with a need to learn and develop a learning attitude. Just because you're going to be leaving school doesn't mean you stop learning. That's when you really start learning. Okay? Learning is all about breaking the patterns in your life. If you're being irritated by someone, you respond with anger to that person. Again makes a mistake, you will shout louder at him or her. And again makes a mistake, again louder. So use this same solution in more quantity, thinking that you will solve the problem. The problem never gets solved, it keeps on repeating. Why not think of a completely different solution? Why, if you can be creative in art school and music school, why can't you be creative with your life and think of a completely different way of looking at your life? No, but we prefer to get stuck in blame game. Okay. It's either your fault or my fault. So I don't want it to be my fault, therefore I'll do anything to prove that it is your fault. And therefore I'll argue with you. Whenever I get into the blame game, all blame is 101% illusion. It's a complete waste of time and waste of energy. Please avoid getting into the blame game at any cost. It is a pattern that repeats, that you must break. It prevents you from learning the whole situation. It prevents you from learning something about yourself. It prevents you from learning about the other person. Because blame is a conclusion. Matter over. Right? So avoid the blame game. Instead, take responsibility. And with the responsibility, I define it a little bit differently. I break the word responsibility up into two words. I break it up into two words. Responsibility. And that means it's your ability to respond to everything and every situation in your life. Now, isn't that a very important, worthwhile to learn skill and ability? Isn't that a very important skill and ability to learn? Only you can develop your own ability. You cannot develop someone else's ability. If I want to develop my ability to walk or to run, I cannot give a lecture on it and then you'll learn how to do it. No? I have to learn only by practicing it myself. So any and every ability, especially responsibility, can only be learned by practicing it yourself. And you therefore can never be responsible for somebody else's responsibility. You can only be responsible for your own responsibility. And therefore it's the most important lesson, more important, of course maths, chemistry and biology are important, but responsibility is more important because it includes all of that. Yes? So, I hope you take back with you the importance of some of the things I'm trying to tell you. Break the patterns in your life. Start by becoming aware of what the patterns in your life are. Break the patterns in your life. Stop blaming people. And start to develop your ability to respond to life, your responsibility. Does that sound good to all of you?
Yes.
And little hard of hearing, sorry.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I slightly heard something from there. Okay, good. Thank you. I won't make you strain your vocal cords too much. Thank you very much. Thank you.